Welcome to the Legendary Upside podcast. My name is Pat Corain. Follow all of my content at legendaryupside.com. An important part of that content is our best ball rankings. And with me today, Sackreligious, Kyle Dvorchak, and Conor Drico out to talk through our best ball rankings over on Legendary Upside. Guys, how's it going?
It's going good. We're in the thick of it. We had one true season-ending injury already, and then two very hilarious in that it turned out to be okay, serious-looking scares.
Yeah, hard in the throat, kind of. We have different senses of humor, but
in hindsight, it's funny.
Peak anxiety time.
JJ McCarthy out, Tyrone Tracy just fine.
Nothing gets me laughing like a near heart attack.
we went through rapid.
You can't laugh about losing thousands of dollars. That's actually normal. It's fine to not laugh about that.
We rapidly went from it's so over to we're so back in record
so
time,
back, baby.
Yeah, it's it's been. I mean, the injury scares are obviously not welcome, but we also know we are going to get injuries. So it's just that time of year where that type of stuff is going to affect things. That'll obviously lead to a bunch of shifts in the rankings. Fortunately, we haven't had to really do that much. I will start us off here though with JJ McCarthy, who is out for the year. He's doing the full meniscus repair on his knee, which is good for his long-term outlook, as far as I understand. Reduces risk of, swelling, discomfort, arthritis, that type of stuff. But because I think the other option was just they cut some of the meniscus out, which, you
got a lot of it. Who needs it?
There's cartilage on there.
First round QB.
It's cartilage. I think.
Get rid of it.
get it out of that knee. So good for his long-term outlook, but is going to miss the entire season. Now we have Sam Darnold as a viable pick. How viable is the question? We've got him at 196, right next to Daniel Jones. I think you're kind of making a similar bet to Jones in that the end of the season isn't a lock. Different reasons. Jones has contract incentives to where they're basically committing to him if they play in the whole year, and if they miss the playoffs, they might not want to do that. Darnold, it's just that he's not very good. And so it's like pretty plausible that by the end of the season, with no real reason to have him out there, they go to Nick Mullins or whoever else as they just try to get the season over with. So that's a risk. I do think he's probably a better click than Jones, though, because you get the upside of what if Kevin O'Connell is actually able to make this guy look okay? And you kind of get like a Gardner Minshew type of season, but you're stacking that season with Justin Jefferson, with Jordan Addison. You've got the running backs. You can actually start to build Viking stacks in a way that we haven't been able to all summer. There aren't going to be Viking stacks in that sense represented in BBM at the level that we would normally expect, even anywhere close to that. No one was doing this. So if you come in, you build Viking stacks with Darnold, it's kind of an edge if he plays the end of the year. So it's like, is it an edge? Is it a trap? Where are you guys at on this?
I'll definitely be taking him now, but it's not a spot where I'm like, I need to get up to 20% Sam Darnold. It's such a huge advantage. I feel like we kind of know what we can expect from him in the sense that there's going to be a lot of weeks where you're in really bad shape if he hits your lineup. If Sam Darnold's hitting your lineup the vast majority of weeks, something's gone terribly wrong and you're probably not advancing. But there's probably 2, maybe 3 games over the course of the season where he'll outscore, your other, if you have a 2 quarterback build, he outscores your other quarterback, or 3 quarterback build, maybe it's 2 games and he outscores them both. But he's got enough rushing upside. I mean, everyone remembers the, Sam Darnold, what was it, those first 4 weeks when he was with the Panthers, when he just went crazy on the ground. You can get a little bit of that, and he's throwing to Justin Jefferson. So it's eerily similar to Daniel Jones. We're pretty sure this guy's bad. He's not a great passer, but he's a starting quarterback in the NFL, and he can deliver a spike week at some low frequency, so he's a fine bet.
Do you guys think there's any risk that he really gets sucked up in ADP just because of the stacking stuff?
Yeah. Yeah, I do. And I think that the quick reaction to this is he's starting all year for them. Like that was my reaction. Like what are they really going to start Nick Mullins? Like come on, like they benched Nick Mullins last year. Like he does not want to play Nick Mullins. But the problem is that he didn't want to play Sam Darnold the entire year either. Darnold was going to get benched at some point for McCarthy, and he's still Sam Darnold. He still might lead to himself getting benched. And we pulled up actually probably still have this loaded. I'll pull it up when I throw to you guys. But I was looking at on rbsdm.com. You can pull up the EPA per play going back to his rookie season, and it is horrendous. It is really concerning how bad he's been.
I can rattle some of it off. I have it pulled up.
Yeah,
45 quarterbacks since he started in 2018. 45 quarterbacks with at least 1,000 dropbacks. He is outside the top 40 in CPOE, adjusted EPA per play, EPA per play. When you look at him compared to Nick Mullins has had all of the benefits in the world, but he's actually been okay in terms of being a backup who comes in and executes to, Shanahan advanced offense, kind of, advanced in terms of how good they are. He's executed them to a small degree. Darnold has never had that, but we don't know that he's going to succeed in it. He's terrible. He has been one of the worst starting quarterbacks in the NFL since he entered the NFL. And the only evidence we have that he is not that guy is, I want to say it's probably in the ballpark of 100 to 150 dropbacks with the Panthers one year. He was bad with the Panthers his first year. He ended up, I believe what happened, they traded for Baker, then Baker gets hurt or something, and he plays over Baker maybe, or I don't remember what it was, but he played 2 years in Carolina, was bad.
Yeah,
one of them.
He might have come in for Baker, yeah.
Yeah, actually, maybe it was the other way. Is he was the one who got hurt, and he had to come back later in the year. If I had to guess what it actually was. Point being, he played 6 games, if I remember correctly, in his second season with the Panthers. Legitimately very efficient in those games. They really ran a not modern NFL style offense, one of the lowest pass rates you will ever see in a very small sample. But he shined in that sample of run, pass, don't make mistakes, don't screw this for us, don't embarrass us. And every other stop in the NFL, he didn't really play enough in the 49ers to say anything about it. He has been one of the worst quarterbacks to grace us in the past 5 years. And we were talking about this, and you're like, I don't know, can he be in the range of, can he push towards the range of Taylor Heineke? I'm trying to look at this.
So I just shared this chart. I'll pull up a different. I'll pull up a better chart. I wanted to share this one first because when you include 500 attempts, Josh Rosen breaks. So it could be worse. Okay, he's not Josh Rosen. He's not Zach Wilson. But if you take this up to 800 attempts, and this includes his entire career, 2018 to 2023. If you take this up, then Josh Rosen gets removed, and it's a little bit easier to see.
Zach Wilson becomes Josh Rosen for the comparison.
Zach Wilson is the chart breaker. How many plays does Zach Wilson have? Because maybe I can boot him off as well. He's got 12.
Unfortunately, he has way too many plays.
Yeah, so we'll take that to 1250 and boot off Wilson, just so we can see kind of who Darnold is near a little bit more easily. But he's kind of near. He's near Ritter. He's near who Ritter will probably fall off of this now. But Ritter, Heineke, Flacco.
I mean, he's below these guys. He now becomes the worst guy on the chart. Essentially,
he's the worst guy on the chart. Yeah,
and the guys in his ballpark are late career Cam Newton, who couldn't hold a job, Gardner Minshew, who was not a starter, Andy Dalton, who's a backup, Joe Flacco came off the street, Justin Fields couldn't get a dime for him on the NFL market. The hope is that he pushes to, but then the question is, how far can you push him? Can he push to Jacoby Brissett?
You're hoping he gets to Minshew. You want Minshew. You want Minshew. You want Mayfield, which includes some really bad, games out of Mayfield over the last couple of years or before last year. That's what you're hoping for. You're hoping you can get to this range instead of it being the worst guy on this chart, which I think is plausible, but it's not a lock by any means.
But also Minshew backup. I don't know if Minshew, if he was a week 1 starter, would he last 17 games? Maybe. Maybe Carson Wentz. That's tough. Even if he gets to Minshew, you still feel that he is not a guaranteed starter. He's a pretty good bet to start all the games. But I think if Minshew starts week 1 for a team, he's going to run through a stretch where you're starting to question if he gets benched. Does he get benched in that stretch? Maybe.
Literally this year. He might start week 1 and get benched for Aiden O'Connell.
Perfect. Yeah. If Minshew starts week 1 this year, we are not betting on him to play 17 games.
No, we're not.
And Nick
I
Mullins is
think you can
a
have
fine-ish backup.
So real quick, this chart that I'm now showing is without his rookie season, and so it gives you a little more hope, but not a ton more.
I mean,
Even if
he's
you take
next
the
to
rookie
Kyle
season
Allen,
away.
Joe Flacco,
Yeah,
Justin
bad.
Fields. Yeah, it's bad.
Yeah. Drico, what were you saying?
I think you could probably get stretches of games from him where he is by numbers relatively efficient, but then him stringing together those games 17 weeks in a row and not having the types of god awful games that get somebody benched like 2 or 3 weeks in a row, that feels a little harder to like as an outcome to fade.
That was always, the sort of the anti-Justin Fields argument too, is that like truly, I think at his best games, he's so fun and he does look a guy who can like change the direction of a franchise. He plays with like such arm talent and such athleticism. And in terms of especially the arm talent, like Darnold truly does have a good arm, but the implosion games are both really bad and all too frequent. That I think as a starter, I don't know if he can, as a starter with a short leash, right? They paid him on a 1-year contract. He was not the long-term guy, obviously. As a starter on a relatively short leash, can he avoid the 3-game bad stretch where then they're like, Nick Mullins, maybe? And then they end up going with that? It's possible. I definitely think it's possible. He's literally playing with the best offensive mind he will have played with. He's playing with Justin Jefferson, who's not only the best receiver he's played with, probably the best receiver in the NFL. Jordan Addison, great too. TJ Hawkinson, if he makes it to when Hawkinson comes back, really good tight end. It's possible. And I think there is like a legitimate upside case that he started to cut off the really dumb mistakes he made in his final year in Carolina. He did that. It's part of what we saw from him. And then he goes into a really good system. I can see him.
And he's been in two, he's coming from the Shanahan. So he got the year under Shanahan, right? And he goes to a
little bit of study.
tree
Yeah. A little study
system. So it's not like it's it is his first year under O'Connell, but it's not like his first year in this kind of branch. So, tree. It's not his first year in the tree. First year in the branch.
I think you can see the upside with it. He gets the great offense, which he has a little more familiarity with, like you said. He gets the talent, and he physically has the tools to be a good quarterback, and it all comes together. But at the same time, that is just simply not what we have seen from him on a really large sample for a guy where we'd now be drafting. Some people are going to draft as if he plays all 17 weeks. So I think we've kind of nailed it with Jones. Jones's upside happens very differently, but 2 years ago he ran for 700 yards and 7 scores. Really strong fantasy season, even if he's a bad thrower of the football. Darnold's kind of hits in a different way, and they're benched for different reasons too. Darnold's isn't a contract-based thing. It's purely based on him being a catastrophically low floor, but they end up coming out as very similar, risky, but you can kind of squint and see it bets.
The fact that he can only be about, owned by a third of the teams in Basketball Mania is doing a lot of work for his rank. So I would just say don't double count the fact. Like, don't go into your draft.
Is it though? I don't know that we fully baked that in, to be honest. I think this is an okay, like this is where I want him ranked right now. But like, if the market steams him up, is it baked in? Because we're saying he's a similar bet straight up to Jones. Like he's just if we're like leaving aside the leverage angle, he's a similar bet to Jones, and we have him one spot above Jones. So we're using that as a tiebreaker, but it's more than a tiebreaker. Like you could talk me into. I don't think I want to go into drafts right now and be hammering Sam Darnold in the 170s, but you could talk me into the 170s if that's where people said you had to take him because of the leverage.
Yeah, I was more comparing him. I mean, I think comparing him to Jones is more like this is probably what we can expect from a range of outcomes. But where I don't really think that Sam Darnold, like the Vikings never entered into this Sam Darnold experiment thinking this guy, what if this guy wins the job and he's the future quarterback of our franchise and we could just have JJ McCarthy ride pine for 5 years. Like that was never the plan. The Giants are still, there's like just a tiny bit of hopium left in the balloon the Giants are huffing on where they're like, but we got Danny all the weapons. Like maybe there's that small little bit where there's like, but maybe there's a chance. And that's the difference.
Yeah, and it's going to be expensive to cut him. They are going to cut him, but it's going to hurt. It's going to sting the franchise.
And so
you've got to think they're praying, and their prayers won't be answered, but you've got to think they're praying. Do the Vikings, does it meaningfully change the direction of their franchise if Sam Darnold is a top 20 quarterback? I don't believe he's under contract for next year.
They might be able to sneak into the playoffs, right? Like that's kind of what you'd be hoping right now if you're in the Vikings front office or coaching staff or whatever. So, I mean, I think yes, I know what you're saying. as we sit here today, they're kind of like, well, this season is basically like a lost season, and we just want to like, sell hope to the fans that like when McCarthy's here, he can hit the ground running because the offense is so ready to go. But as part of that, wouldn't it be nice if we could like sneak into the playoffs and lose in the wild card round or something? So, like it's not. And as far as the outlook for the teams, like it's not like that different,
Agreed. Yeah.
They could
I
even
think part of
lose
what's-
in the playoffs to the Giants. It could be
Yeah,
it
really,
could be
they
like
could.
full
Yeah.
circle again.
There you go.
I think part of what Sack said though also makes me think.
Getting benched until they're definitely missing the playoffs.
Yep.
Yeah.
Whereas Darnold,
and
like,
obviously
he
might
could
not
just
get
suck.
benched at all.
You wouldn't believe this, but maybe Sam Darnold is bad, and it's revealed to us quickly.
Yeah.
And they immediately go to Nick Mullins, and then Nick Mullins is probably not good, and then they play Jaron Hall, and he gets hurt after 4 snaps. But like, if one of them has a downside risk of missing 12 games, all of which are the games you like, or well, 3 of which are the games you really need your quarterback to be in there, it's much more likely to be Sam Darnold. So I think that's maybe what makes me rank them close to each other, even though the fact that Sam Darnold has not been drafted very often is a big benefit for him that Daniel Jones doesn't have nearly as much of. The fact that he could also, his floor is just playing not many games and he's gone forever. That's why I'd probably say it's fine to keep them next to each other.
So
I think there's a cap on the leverage point too, though, because he does play quarterback. He is a passer, so it's not like like how much leverage do you get from a 25-point week from Sam Darnold?
Next,
not that much. Yeah, not that much. You're right. That's a good point. The leverage is really not that great. I think what he does do is add upside to a boring quarterback room, I think, because we know that we just saw Nick Mullins throw for a ton of yards. He's got the weapons, and Sam Darnold's bad, but he's bad in kind of a fun way. He'll run some and he takes chances. He's erratic. He makes mistakes. He does things you should not do, but he's got a big arm and he can run some. He's not a dual threat, but he's mobile. So if you have a really boring quarterback room as a quarterback 3, he's pretty interesting. When you look at like the quarterbacks ahead of him, you've got like there's like different pockets of guys where just ahead of him, you've got like Geno Smith and Will Levis, Baker Mayfield. These guys are starting all season. They have to absolutely bomb to get benched, and they also have decent enough weekly upside, especially if these guys if the Titans pass more. You go down to this group, Bryce Young and Derek Carr are like very boring but locked in starters. I guess Carr has like minor bench risk, but it requires the team to absolutely crater because they're locked into him next year contract wise. Then you have 2 rookies. We know these guys are playing by the very end of the season, so you don't have to worry about not having a quarterback in the fantasy playoffs, which is obviously a huge concern in Best Ball Mania type format. The guy I skipped was Justin Fields. It's a similar – that's where I'm saying, like, if you told me that I was going to take Sam Darnold or Justin Fields because that's what the ADP was dictating, I guess, like, what's my pushback for that?
Different ceilings when they play. Like, Justin Fields just has a different ceiling. It's a different category ceiling to me.
I'm getting more games out of Darnold, though, for sure, right?
I
Not
wouldn't say
for
it's for
sure.
sure.
No,
I
no,
would
no.
project
Okay,
Darnold
okay.
for more
All
games. The
All right.
median projection for Darnold is meaningfully higher than Fields. But like I'd say maybe 15 or 20% of the time Fields plays more games.
But
Maybe
like,
that's
let
even
me tell you a
And,
story.
and those are fun scenarios. I do.
Yeah.
I do like thinking about those.
It's
Well, those
week
scenarios
3.
are the Sam Darnold gets benched after 5 week scenarios. They're not
I thought they were Justin Fields plays all 17
a smaller
games.
subset of those are 5% of the 20% is Justin Fields plays all.
5%
They're in there,
and
but
20%.
most of them were, in my mind, Sam Darnold benched quite quickly.
I mean,
Sorry.
you think it's week 3. The Steelers have just looked putrid. Russ has thrown for 200 total yards through 2 games. Like, you don't think that's just they're just like this experiment is over and we're never going back to this.
No,
Like,
that's very plausible.
Yep.
I just want to point out that when Kyle said 5%, and then he said of 20%, that's 1%. That's just 1%. So he.
I was hoping
got my
that's
hopes
not
up.
what he meant,
Sorry.
but that's more
No.
realistic.
It is more realistic. All right. Yeah, no, I think that makes sense. It does. This is like, we'll need to see what the market does, but right now, if you take Sam Darnold at the end of drafts, you're probably good. But we'll see. Like if the market decides he's got to go ahead of Bryce Young, I'm at least like open. Certainly if I've got Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison, like I think I'm building some of those stacks. I'm not going to go out of my way to try to get Sam Darnold on teams. I'm not going to backdoor. What would even the backdoor be? Jalen Naylor and Sam
Jalen
Darnold
Naylor's actually got that wide receiver. He's closing in on it.
He's
So
the
that
wide
would be
receiver
it.
3.
I mean, we almost are about to move Jalen Naylor way up in the ranks today if the Addison injury was real.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's true. So Jalen Naylor and Sam Darnold are not what I'm looking to do, but yeah, I think he's definitely, if you're doing the Viking stacks and he moves up in ADP, I don't know that I'm going to be like, you just can't take him. I think I'll probably tack him onto some of that. All right, so yeah, we talked about some of the near injuries. One of the biggest ones was Jahmyr Gibbs. We have him back to where he was now. You guys not worried about the hamstring thing, right?
No, not really. Seems pretty minor. Like all the Twitter docs are like, yeah, 1 to 2 weeks is like the typical sort of bad scenario for this. And we are way more than 1 to 2 weeks out from the season. To me, it was a good reminder that like, still a committee back going at the 1-2 turn. But also, like, what the hell else are you going to do? It's like never hit 900 yards. Drake London goes after him. Like, hasn't been good in 3 years. Jonathan Taylor. So, I can only be so pessimistic. I'm the pessimistic one of the group. And I think our ranking's about right. So,
Hollywood Brown also, I think, since the last time we did a pod, got injured. Either way, bring him up. He's pretty far down for us. We haven't really been in on him the whole way. The fact that Worthy's playing with the ones right now, Rice looking less and less likely to be suspended, all of that bad for Brown. And then he's probably missing week 1 with this injury. And then he's also missing the rest of the training camp with his first season on a new team. It's just not very good. I'm just not into it.
I've seen some people floating ideas of what if you do the Mahomes stack and go something like Mahomes Rice at the 4-5 turn. And then, you're probably never getting Worthy back there, but then you can take Hollywood much later. And that's basically the same combination that other people got earlier with Rice and Hollywood being flipped. And to that I say, or I could take any of these better players than Hollywood Brown. The fact that he was a bad pick earlier and then injury got him priced to somewhat more appropriate doesn't make me be like, oh man, now I can get this sick combo that everyone else got and paid a lot more. I'm like, no, I'd still just prefer the non-Hollywood Brown versions of that. But I have taken him some when he falls.
I would probably take him if I had Mahomes and Rice. I'd probably take him over Christian Watson, Thomas, JSN, those guys. And I'm pretty out.
I mean, I take him when I can get him as the second one of the, like I'll take one of the other guys first, and then if Hollywood's still there, then I'll take him. Because I see him as like the end of that tier of guys.
I do too, but do you feel that strongly about the order that we have these guys ranked in? Because I think the counter to that would be, why don't you just take Hollywood and get one of these other guys? Because aren't these guys all the same? Like,
if we agree they're in a tier, the order within a tier shouldn't matter too much. But the correlation aspect of you in this theory already having Mahomes would actually matter. I'm a little more receptive to that, though I do feel the same way that like I didn't like him before. Now he's missing week 1 and the rest of training camp. I do think, though, if I had Mahomes, I'd fall more on the side of probably just swallow your medicine and take his correlated piece. I don't like saying that, though. Feels great.
Yeah, no, I'm taking him. I'm just like, give me the full discount. Because, like, the ADP says 67.5. I think I've gotten him past 80 like 3 or 4 times this week. So
that's nice.
Just be willing, don't just see the lower ADP and gobble it up right away. Try and push it is what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's true. Especially with a player we don't like. Definitely try and push.
Right. What do you lose when you're, oh no, I missed a Hollywood Brown share? How will I ever recover? It's like, no, see what you can get. Like there with these injuries, especially when we're like, it shouldn't impact his play long term. Like he should just return to normal when he's back. So it's like, yeah, just be willing to push it and see, try and squeeze the max out of the injury fear.
The only place I'm pushing back there is if you have Mahomes, because Mahomes is not backdoor stackable in really any way other than like adding Deneric Prince or CEH or something. Like all the pieces are he's the last piece now. So yeah, I probably, and I really don't have much Hollywood, so I'm probably just grabbing him in like the late sixth and letting the room decide which other guy I get or something like that.
You can also do. It's just, I mean, it depends on your room, but like Rice sometimes will go a little. I mean, he's pretty much the 4-5 turn, but every once in a while he'll go like closer to the middle, like early middle of the fifth. And so you can sometimes, what we used to be doing with like the Lamar Andrews leap of faith, you can now do with Mahomes, and then you at least have the insurance policy of Hollywood later. So I think that's more like,
or Worthy. You just take Worthy in the fifth.
Right.
Yeah. I told you guys this on the call, but I had a guy take Mahomes after Rice in the fourth. So he's playing for Worthy or Kelsey, who was somehow available to come back. But I was at the front. I was at the 101, and I just grabbed Kelsey and Worthy. So you got to be careful. You got to be careful about it. If Rice is gone, that's kind of I don't think I'm taking Mahomes if Rice is gone, right? Because that can happen to you. Someone just grabs Worthy, and then you're like, what are you going to take? You're taking Hollywood in the fifth. They're trying to push in the sixth. It's not, because his ADP it's possible he goes ahead of you in the sixth. So, but yeah, I think I'm going to be trying to take more Mahomes, Rice at the 4 or 5 turn. I have a ton of Lamar Andrews still available. I'm still trying to get it, but getting some of that Mahomes Rice there is nice. Are you guys still doing the Kelsey Mahomes 3-4 turn? Because that is you're not getting Worthy in the fifth very often anymore.
No, you're not, but I'll do it. Sometimes if you get into a room with a lot of badges now, like wide receiver is just dead at the 3-4 turn. You're there, and like Diggs and Dell and Flowers are all off the board, and you're like, do I take Michael Pittman? Do I reach for T. Higgins? And then I choose just to do Kelsey Mahomes. But yeah, to do that, I really, really now need to have started 2 wide receivers, because I know that I'm not getting Worthy or Rice back there at 5-6.
Yep. So I guess let's kind of go down here and talk the running backs a little bit. I don't know that we did a ton of changes this week as far as the running backs go. Daniel was mentioning he's not getting as many of these running backs as he was. I'm taking a lot of Chase Brown right now, so that's like maybe I'm not getting exactly this. And Jonathon Brooks has fallen, so I'm getting a good amount of Brooks, a good amount of Chase Brown. I don't know. I'm still kind of living in this pocket to a fair degree. Are you guys on which side of this do you want? Are you feeling like this is starting to thin out a little bit, or you're these guys we thought would move up in August? I don't really feel like they have, but Daniel seemed to think they were a little bit.
I don't think they've moved up. I mean, Brooks has definitely moved down, and I just end up with a lot of Brooks now. And then we've just gotten more aggressive on Chase Brown, and the market increased his price substantially, but it's slowing down a little bit now. I mean, it depends on the room you're in. Like I've seen him go ahead of Jalen Warren in certain rooms, and I just won't have him in those rooms. That. Yeah. But I mean, when I'm right around pick 100 and Chase Brown is there, and I'm like staring down, DeAndre Swift or Chase Brown, I'm like, yeah, Chase Brown every time. Like I don't need to get cute here. I'll just keep loading up the guy that looks like he's going to have the Bengals, workhorse role. So
yeah, in terms of Jonathon Brooks too, important reminder: you guys aren't going to believe this. Something that was very obvious that was going to happen, that being Jonathon Brooks being put on PUP, just wasn't really realistic. And Canales told us as much. They're going to bring him in slowly, probably not ready for the start of training camp. They're going to put him on PUP. We all know this. Everyone drafting knows this. You're on your first BBM, you're on your 130th BBM back then. You think, we all know he's going to be put on PUP. Let's just bake that into his cost. You're not going to believe this. It wasn't baked into his cost at all. So...
Yeah, and it's funny because people are starting to like really actually be like, I don't know, man. This is I'm not loving this how this feels. I'm like, we haven't learned anything new.
I think I got him at pick 120 on DraftKings today, so that was cool.
This is the same. Like, I don't know. It's like hard for me to. I kind of like we stayed strong for most of the pre-training camp period. Right the week before, I was like, this feels dumb. I'm just drafting Brooks. I'm just gonna do it. I'm not getting enough Brooks. I should have held strong for like 2 more weeks because sure enough, people started to get nervous. And now it feels like he might fall a lot. Like he might fall to this Javonte Williams range.
Him and Javonte are going to flip. I was just about to say Javonte's been moving up. I used to be able to get Javonte in the 1-teens pretty consistently, and now there was a draft today where I was like, there are a bunch of these backs available, and it used to be that if you left Javonte there with like 4 other guys all around him, Javonte's the one that makes it back. There's 2 guys picking in between your next pick. You're like, I'll leave Javonte here, easy peasy. He comes back. And he did not come back this time, and I'm noticing that more and more, and the ADP is reflecting that too. He's been trending up. The rumors of Javonte's demise were greatly exaggerated.
Greatly exaggerated.
I think Pat, though, not to completely justify how we had Brooks ranked in the summer, but he was, I think, at those prices in a vacuum, still a good pick. Like we think he was going to be. He's still a good pick, and that draft room only existed at that time. The landscape is a lot different. So I don't think it was bad to have him ranked roughly where we did. But now looking back and seeing how far he fell, I would have been fine if we were even slightly ahead or even slightly under during those times and we're just crushing him now. But I wouldn't treat this as, oh, he fell a lot, we should have had 0 then and 100 now.
Right.
We should have it shifted towards right now and shifted less towards back then when he was predictably more expensive and is predictably cheaper now. But there are combinations of players or just drafts where you think he fits your team well back then that it still made plenty of sense to take him, even knowing now that we can see how far he fell. I don't think it was that. It's fine that we took him then. I could maybe say we could have taken a little less of him then and hammered him harder now. But like it is being a little overly precise, although we knew this was going to happen.
Yeah, and but I like the point of you don't want to just only have this guy in your late August teams because I thought he was a good pick at cost then, and it might be that drafting in June was the best time to draft. It might be that drafting in May was the best time to draft. We don't really know. So we'll learn in December when the best time to draft was, and so having Brooks mixed in throughout is my preference there. But yeah, I mean we're gonna have a bag of Brooks. If we don't move off this rank, and you guys are going to have to drag me kicking and screaming off of it. Because I think I'm happy to have a bag of Brooks at this price. I mean, one thing that I've been thinking about a lot is that the dead zone, has really shifted down. But Ben Gretch's work on who do we target in the dead zone? Like who are the exceptions to the dead zone? It's the young guys. It's the guys that aren't there despite having projectable workloads, right? Like if a guy has a projectable workload and we're still not interested, that's a pretty bad sign for how good he is. Brooks is not. I mean, you can kind of talk yourself into his projectable workload at the end of the season, but he's going to miss games. People are starting to get nervous about how much work that he's going to have. We don't know for sure that he's good, but he was a good prospect. He got good draft capital. I think at this price, and as the price falls, you stand to win a lot if he is good and plays a lot. Because if he is good, they've penciled in touches for him at the end of the season. Like he's a part of their plans down the stretch. So this kind of strikes me as like the type of pick that would have been a good pick in the 5th round, several years ago. And now we're getting a discount because all running backs are kind of discounted, but also because of the injuries. So if he falls to running back 30 or something I'm going to be very overweight. Let's see. The Javonte stuff, I think, is interesting. This general range we haven't shifted on too much, though. Singletary came up a little bit with the Tracy injury. That's not that serious. Hopefully, it won't really be a big deal. But I think Singletary it helps him probably a little bit, especially early on, to consolidate touches and have a chance of being the whole backfield for the beginning of the season. Even the Tracy they're working with him this big chunk of camp now. Dowdle's a guy we should touch on. We talked last week about how we had him flipped over Zeke. That has continued. There's always pushback on the Dowdle stuff, and I get it. We don't know if he's any good. I did get his rush yards over expected, which were -9 last year, which is not good. Obviously, it's negative, but
it's probably literally almost neutral though. Like,
it's almost neutral.
Yeah.
It's similar to Jerome Ford, similar to Ty Chandler. So kind of like, and honestly, like you put Ty Chandler on the Cowboys, like I am drafting him very highly.
I was just about to say Jerome Ford with no looming threat of losing work in week 15, 16, 17. I'm in, baby. But
yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, and I think he had 37% success rate, which is also not good, but not bad. So he was like mediocre last year. Here, I'll actually pull up the rush yards over expected numbers from NFL Next Gen. This is a free stat on nextgenstats.nfl.com. So if you look, he's not on here, but he was at -9. So he was right after Jerome Ford, not that far behind Joe Mixon, Deontay Foreman, Ty Chandler. He was ahead of Tajay Spears, ahead of Ramondre Stevenson. Joshua Kelly's in this range, right? Tony Pollard had a bad year in this range. Alexander Madison's, took a fair amount of more negative yards to get there. But in the same ballpark. So you don't want to be in the negatives, obviously. And with the 37% success rate, kind of like Ramondre Stevenson-y last year, which was a disappointing season. Jerome Ford, again, had 35% success rate. It's honestly very similar to Jerome Ford. Like, slightly boom-bust, and the boom isn't that great. But
yeah, a lot of the RotoViz advanced stats seem very deeply mediocre.
Deeply mediocre. Yeah. So on that, we're like, wow.
And you said we're jamming this guy. Is what you
said.
Jamming.
We're jamming. We could not be jamming this guy more. Because you're betting against Zeke. You're betting against Zeke holding this job down. You're betting against Royce Freeman being the best free agency signing of the summer or the spring. You're betting against them signing Khalil Herbert, who probably isn't even getting cut.
That's the scariest part of the betting against, though, that they bring someone else in. But like the Cowboys have this really dumb saying that they basically use to placate their fan base when they don't do anything to address a position. And anyone who has followed the Cowboys for a long time has heard, "We like our guys." I mean, we like our guys is the mantra. When they don't do anything, they're like, "We like our guys." And that's just basically them saying, like, we're not going to do anything. The guys on the team are good. Like, we're going to roll with this. And they've been saying that about the running back room. And if you go back and listen to when the Cowboys have said, "We like our guys," it doesn't often work well for them. But damn it, are they stubborn about it? That's what we care. That's all we care. I don't care if Rico Dowdle is deeply mediocre. I care that Rico Dowdle is deeply mediocre.
I'm hoping to God he is.
You're right. Yeah. Remain deeply mediocre and let the Cowboys continue to be as stubborn as they've been in the past on situations like this, and give Rico 15 plus touches a game.
Yeah, and the Beats have continued to say they expect him to lead the team in rushing, and honestly, the Royce Freeman signing / them talking up the signing as if it was this coup is awesome. That's what I want. I want Stephen Jones to think they're good, they're set. They got Royce Freeman. They already got Royce Freeman. What do you need Samaje Perine for when you have a Royce Freeman, dude? That's what I want, and that's what I'm hearing. So I'm not worried. I'm not as worried, I think, as the market is that there's a third back coming in. I mean, frankly, Zeke is mispriced if they don't bring a third back in, and we're ahead of the market on Zeke. So, and I'm still taking both these guys in some drafts when I feel like, like a committee RB3 really helps the room. I'm happy to take both. One of the other pushbacks that we get a lot on Dowdle as we become Team Dowdle, or I guess not become, but we've been Team Dowdle for a while, is the offensive line. Kind of like, hey, this is not like this amazing offensive line anymore. It's still solid. Brandon Thorne for ETR has them in tier 3, labeled solid offensive lines. They're the number 6 ranked line overall, just ahead of the Chargers. PFF has them 10th behind the Steelers, just ahead of the Bears, just ahead of the Chargers. So this is still a good offensive line. It's not what it was. And that's, to me, not the bet. Like, I'm not betting that, Rico Dowdle's behind this insane line. Like, if that's the bet, then like he would be a 7th round pick, and Zeke would be a 9th round pick. Like, that's not the bet. The bet is he's good enough to run behind a solid offensive line on an offense that can move the ball because they have Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb. And, he's got to be good enough to run ahead of Zeke Elliott, which is not a high bar at this point. So, if you get the offensive line playing really well, I think to me that's upside. That's not like baked into what we're doing because of the price. I mean, this is so cheap for one of these two dudes. I think now we'll have to eat some crow if they do sign somebody, but I think we're getting the Dallas Cowboys starting running back at pick 127 or pick 126.9. That's just so cheap for the payoff there. And I just have a hard time not being really overweight on that bet.
It's just
it'd be a lot easier to worry about it if there was literally anybody to be afraid of. But their rookie is they have some rookie who's like a 5-year starter, 5-year college player who had 4 yards a carry in his 5th year and a 40% dominator rating. So and Rice Freeman. So there is nothing. There's nobody in the room that's gonna be like, look, palatable. It's like, okay, this is the guy we need to give time over Rico or Zeke probably.
I also think when we've heard like some kind of trade rumor or something, like the Broncos are shopping P. Ryan around and the Cowboys they've had conversations with the Cowboys or something. Like, when we start to hear that, if there was a guy who they were going to sign that was going to be meaningfully involved, like, I don't know, maybe not yet. Maybe we would hear that in the next week or so. But like, it's just been like an assumption that people have made based on vibes, I guess. I mean, based on us not thinking that Dowdle's good enough, but we've not gotten any evidence from the Cowboys themselves that that's where they're headed.
It would have to be a trade deadline thing, I think, or something like a couple of weeks into the season.
You mean in season?
Yeah.
Interesting.
I think the other alternative is roster cut downs. Once 53 mans have to be set, Broncos can't keep P. Ryan. They choose, they can't. They choose not to keep P. Ryan. So that's like the one final.
Which
deadline.
I still think happens. I still think P. Ryan gets cut, and we're all holding our breath. Also, we have Chase Brown bags now, so we're just probably gonna get screwed one way or another.
But the Chase Brown is a nice tangent though into what's the difference between Zach Moss and Rico Dowdle, except we're pretty sure Zach Moss is worse than Rico Dowdle, right? Like, we got a lot more sample on Zach Moss being not.
He was actually pretty good last year.
He was good last year.
He was pretty good for 3 games last year, right?
He was good on the entirety of the season. It was just heavily weighted towards the first half was so good that it made the bad second half, like, if you just look at the average, you zoom out, it still looks good. But geez, I mean, those final 3 starts where he was 5,600 and 40% on DraftKings, Jesus, those were awful. But he was really good at the beginning, and it looks good when you zoom out.
Zach, I thought you're gonna go a little further. What's the difference between Rico Dowdle and Chase Brown?
I mean, Chase Brown had some juice. I don't think Rico Dowdle has the juice.
He had one glass of juice.
He had one juice.
Correct.
He had one juice.
I'm pretty sure. I mean, super small sample. I think I pulled out that long catch, and he still had 2 yards per out run or something. It was really good. I mean, you are really narrowing the sample down.
Did he one other route and
the catch
2
yards on this? Yep, 2 yards on the other route.
Exactly. 2 yards per out run is funny that's impressive because if you ran one route for 2 yards, it would not be good.
Yeah.
All right, so that's enough Rico hype. But I guess it's a bet on uncertainty. I think we want to bet on uncertain backfields. This is like the most uncertain backfield. Yes, it could go wrong, but I just have such a hard time, and that includes Zeke. I'm slightly overweight on Zeke too, so I don't have blinders on here. I think we bet on Dallas Cowboys running backs starting in the 120s. That seems like something we should be interested in.
Yep.
And Dallas Cowboys, again, I know it's not the offensive line or whatever, but it's not a totally dust ball team either. This team can put up some points. All right. let's move down. We have cooled a little bit on Drake Maye, but only symbolically. So what we do, if you're, if you guys are curious about, the rankings process, we have the rankings that are we have like pure rankings that are capped by the ADP, and part of this process, they're like, some people are like, well, show me what the pure rankings are, and it's like they're not. Sometimes they're a way to express an opinion that then does not become part of our subscribers' lives. So the Drake Maye pure ranking was higher than his actual ranking, but the ADP cap kept rational ranking practices in place. We're now pretty close to like Drake Maye's actual ranking is his pure ranking. Like there's that optimism behind the scenes has come down. So we've actually moved down on Drake Maye. But before we were like, this guy's such a smash that I can't. But I want to rank him higher, but I'm not allowed. Basically, now we're more like, yeah, he's probably this is probably correct. So symbolically, that led to Drake Maye falling one spot in the rankings.
Literal like, one spot in the
literally
rankings.
One spot. Yeah, but as we were discussing. As we were discussing Drake Maye and it looking more likely that he sits out a big part of the season, like based on what I'm hearing out of Patriots camp, it's like he could sit 6, 7 games, 8 games, 9 games, like that. Those types of outcomes are starting to look more plausible to me. I think we've moved in that direction, I should say, as opposed to like, him only being out 4 games.
I still think really he's like confused with 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 some of the narratives where I'll see one tweet that like, oh, he's absolutely balling, like he's making play after play, and then the next tweet by somebody else, he just got sacked 5 times out of 6.
So some of it, I think there's a lot of people who cover the Patriots. So there was like stuff about him getting outplayed by Joe Milton, which I didn't see in the stuff I trust the most and I never believed. So you got to, there's like a lot of, the Patriots are a well-covered team. So there's going to be an array of opinions. The other thing is that he definitely has had good days and bad days. 2 days ago was apparently one of the worst days of football that it feels like anyone in New England has ever covered. Like they were appalled. And it wasn't Maye, it was the offensive line. It's sort of hard to tell what Maye was even trying to do because he's basically getting sacked every time. And so was Jacoby Brissett, which is obviously a concern because Maye, once he's out there, is going to be playing behind the first team line. So yeah, that's bad, and that was in a scrimmage with the Eagles. So the offensive line is definitely a concern, and they didn't play him that much in the preseason behind the second string offensive line, in part because apparently they didn't want him to get hit, but it doesn't really make any sense because you need your rookie quarterback to get reps, and you could have just left the first string offensive line out further. So I don't know. They're doing stuff that's starting to make me feel nervous that they don't have any kind of semblance of like a thoughtful plan for what the point of this year is.
Yeah, I think we all agree with that. That like they don't seem like the most logical team, but also the 2-prong thing is like this is both weird and the team's just going to be dreadful. I mean, like you also pointed this out that like a lot of the beat reporters have noted like, wow, back-to-back penalties on the center.
Yeah, the penalties, man. That's going to be so like, frustrating.
The line seems very not talented, very disjointed. And although we really like Polk, we think Baker's a fun upside shot late. Like you are banking a lot on Jalen Polk being good out of the gate and Javon Baker working himself into a role where he can make splash plays. Because the alternative is Kendrick Bourne is coming back and you're like, oh Christ, thank God we got Kendrick Bourne in week 8. Or it's KJ Osborne. You're like, he's running 100% of the routes and he's averaging 1.1 yards per route run. They are not getting anything done. There is a lot of downside to, we couldn't even tell you if Drake Maye was good or not because his receivers never got open. His line never blocked for him when he gets in. And those things we knew ahead of time. The line was bad. It's been known for a while. We knew ahead of time who their receivers were on the roster. But the more we see in training camp, the more you sort of have to visualize how do we lose the bet, which is why we moved him down one spot.
Yeah, that's why we moved on one spot. Yeah, because you know what? The floor is low. We acknowledge the floor is low, but honestly, like the ceiling is still so high. And in part, like if you enjoy a little classic rock, there's a great video on Twitter of him running around to Freebird. Highly recommend. This dude runs. This dude runs like quickly. He scrambles from a clean pocket. He, he's not sit around. He's not Howell. He's like almost the reverse of Howell. Like he is ready to make plays if everything's breaking down around him, including throwing on the run. So, and he's a very willing and capable deep thrower. And that was the other thing, Drico. You said like there's been some highlights and stuff coming out too. Like apparently today he had an awesome day. Was like hitting all these dimes to Jalen Polk and stuff. So it's like he's a toolsy rookie, and he's going to have some up and down stretches in practice and in games. But I think his ceiling as a playmaker and a guy with rushing ability and size to do that at the goal line. And by the way, apparently, for what it's worth, he's been awesome in the red zone in training camp. That's been a consistent drumbeat that he's really – they're like – it's weird because like things compress. You think the rookie quarterback would be worse, but he's actually been at his best in the red zone. So I'm still –
those athletic guys do get better in the red zone, right? Because the run threat matters a lot.
Yeah, that's a great point. So anyway, so we moved him down to one spot, but then are we actually taking any less? Because, Kyle, you say like there's a lot of risk and everything. Yeah, I know that there is. Like this offense could suck, but like Demario Douglas might be the number one option in this offense. He's available at pick 158. Jalen Polk might be the number one option all season and has a really good chance of being the number one option down the stretch. He's available at pick 130. He was the 37th pick in the draft. Not a great prospect, but like a pro-ready prospect with good route running, great hands, can be moved around the formation, can go over the middle. There's actually pretty good downfield threat, especially on in-breaking routes. Looking at Matt Harmon's stuff, he really highlighted that.
Have to give his prospect profile a lot of leniency too for playing with NFL talents around him, like supreme NFL talents in a number 9 overall pick receiver and a 3rd round pick in McMillan, if I remember correctly.
A lot of our stuff is basically boils down to target earning, and a lot of it really comes down to how many targets could you get relative to your teammates, and if your teammates are awesome, that's gonna make you look like a worse prospect. So, Polk is still extremely enticing to me. Demario Douglas, a very strong pick. Javon Baker's now completely free. Hunter Henry could be the number one option on his team if these wide receivers aren't any good, or even if only one of them is very good. Like he could be, one of these tight ends down here that like just commands targets where like, I like Noah Fant, but he's probably the number 4 option on his team. So I'm having trouble thinking through how I don't just take Patriots still. Do you guys have any plans to take fewer Patriots?
No, I think I'm going to take a little bit less May because of all this, but you'll correct me if I'm wrong. There's either Gretsch or Jacob Sanderson who was saying like, yeah, you can still draft all the receivers and just play.
This is Madison Parkhill.
Oh, sorry, it's Madison Parkhill saying you can just play it through them too. And I think to me that's like, even if you want to get a little less May, because if you've been here all summer, you're going to have a lot of May. So even if you want to get less May, it honestly just wouldn't dissuade me from getting less Pop Douglas, getting less Polk, getting less Henry. I am going to try and take a little less Drake Maye because I have so much already. We're seeing some of this stuff that we knew was a risk come to fruition. I'm still going to draft a decent clip of May, and I'm not stopping drafting his receivers at all, frankly.
By the way, I heard it pronounced Javon Baker. Oh. That move him up or down for you guys?
Move him up. Move him up.
Yeah, move him up.
I think up. I think Javon. I'm more in on Javon than Javon.
Yeah, Javon's hype.
Yeah.
To touch on how I'm handling my Drake Maye exposure as the most bullish Drake Maye person on this call, because I believe
you actually are. You have more than me.
Yeah, I think I have 30% May.
I'm in the high 20s. Sorry.
God damn, man.
Like over 1,000.
Really out over your skis there.
Yeah. What I was doing was I would pretty much if Drake Maye was there in the 17th round in drafts, I would always take him. And then my 18th round pick would be one of Baker or Bourne or Osborne. And I didn't care which. It was like whatever the room gives me, whatever gets back to me, take one of them. And I'll just throw Drake Maye on there as a pure upside play. Already got either an elite quarterback or 2 totally solid quarterbacks. I throw Drake Maye on there. It's purely for upside. I'm doing less of that now just because like I got a big old bag of it and I don't need to just keep absolutely jamming it in there. When I have a good situation for May where I've got, really it's Douglas has been the one that, because Polk is one of my highest owned receivers Douglas, I got on the train a little later. I mean, he's still one of my highest. He's over 20%. But the drumbeat on Douglas is really, really positive.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah.
And he feels like one of the better clicks on the board to me. And so I end up with a lot of Douglas. And so I will still end up, having Maye set up, and I'll take him occasionally there. But I don't want to just with reckless abandon continue just hammering Maye just because, hey, he's there in the 17th round. Don't have him stacked up yet, but there's a guy there. So that's kind of the way I'm managing it.
Yeah, I'm trying to set it up a little less because I wasn't doing a ton of like Maye Baker backdoor stuff. I was pretty much always setting it up with Henry, Douglas, or Polk. But I would occasionally do it, but it would be more like a kind of I got to get out of jail here, like in the same way that I would sometimes and still sometimes do like Baker Mayfield, Kate Otten, or Aaron Rodgers, Tyler Conklin. I'm just like, if I'm on a turn and I'm like, I got sniped. I need to set up another stack. But I'm trying to break ties away from Jalen Polk a little bit now. He's my third highest drafted player. And he's my second highest drafted player. That's obviously, they correlated together. So I'm trying to do that. I'm just trying to take like slightly less Polk. One guy that I want to ask you guys about, we didn't talk about him on the call actually, but Adonai Mitchell has moved up in our rankings, and then it feels like he's fallen recently, which I don't understand because, right? Am I wrong? He has fallen.
He fell because of the Alec Pierce news. He's behind Alec Pierce.
Right.
But then right after that, you got the Josh Downs injury, and Adonai Mitchell is going to play out of the slot. And yeah, I mean, when you're talking about breaking ties away from Jalen Polk, Adonai Mitchell has been my favorite way to do it. I'm like, oh baby, let me load up on the Adonai Mitchell now. I mean, yeah, especially for you, you've got Jerry Jeudy who you can occasionally click, but I personally, I did take Jerry Jeudy today. I'm a hypocrite, but I had 3 Dolphins, and I was like, whatever. Well, and I think Adonai Mitchell was gone, so I took Jerry Jeudy.
Yeah. Yeah, Adonai Mitchell getting slot snaps in the preseason to me is like, I mean, it's preseason slot snaps, so I don't want to go like crazy, but I think that's pretty bullish. Like they're showing that they want to get this guy on the field in a couple different ways. And that basically if Downs does miss time, Adonai Mitchell will have a role. Like it's not like there's a dedicated slot receiver to come in and Mitchell's got to earn all his stuff through Alec Pierce and only through Alec Pierce. Like there's 2 paths for him to get on the field. And my guess would be that, he would play some on the outside, even if Downs was out, but he would get some of his work in the slot, which gives him just a path to playing time that's a little bit more robust than we might have thought it was when it was like him and Alec Pierce competing for this job. So that makes me more encouraged. It also, I think signals that they really do want to get this guy on the field early in his rookie season. He's going to dust Alec Pierce by the end of the year. It's just Alec Pierce is not going to hold this job. If this guy's, and he's gotten back to making some plays in training camp and stuff. So I'm pretty excited about Adonai Mitchell. He's probably the most exciting way for me to move away from just constantly clicking Jalen Polk. We can wrap.
Alec Pierce is very one-dimensional, right?
Very, yeah.
He's like big, tall guy, catch, jump.
That's
fast,
it. That's the dimension. That's the dimension.
No, he's fast. Favorite late round picks before we get out of here, guys?
I'll throw in first because I convinced you to up his rank a ton. And I think it's sort of Adonai Mitchell-like in Jalen McMillan. I don't know if Adonai Mitchell goes out and plays 80% of the routes week 1, especially this was more true when it was Downs still healthy. But it
you
was
got
like,
him ranked so high. I don't know that we were allowed to. He doesn't qualify anymore. He's like a 13th round pick now in our ranks.
In our ranks, that's not. He's still ADP of 171.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, I think it was especially sort of referencing the time in which we were obviously assuming Josh Downs was playing early. It was like, yeah, I don't know if he's going to play 80% of the snaps, 80% of the routes in week 1, but all the reports from training camp is he's pushing to be that wide receiver 3. Adonai Mitchell recently was that, he is, we think he may not be entirely dusting off Alec Pierce in week 1, but he's already pushing him. He's looking better in camp. That's the trajectory I need to see. These are not week 1 bets. And the fact that they could already be on the field as a big play threat in week 1, even for just half the snaps, like, oh, if you're getting half the snaps and you're a talented rookie, you can flash on half the snaps and you will earn yourself a bigger role, while also on those flashes cracking my fantasy lineup. And then as you earn that role, the points go up exponentially. 100%. Those are the bets we love to make. And Jalen McMillan still going 170, which is, I would say that's the late rounds, if I'm being honest. So 170 is really late, so he qualifies for this. Is that his training camp reports, honestly, I'd say, like, in terms of role, have honestly looked even better than AD Mitchell's before the Downs news, in that it was immediately he's getting reps with the ones, he's earning Baker's trust, and his competition is former 4th round pick Trey Palmer, who's fine. It's probably a good wide receiver 4 or 5. But the McMillan stuff already looks like he's going to have a strong week 1 role, and he's a rookie who we think his production ascends as the season goes on. Feels like an absolute slam dunk pick. We're like, we haven't ranked above Darnell Mooney. Yeah, like, what is Darnell Mooney doing as the season goes on? Like, he's running a bunch of wind sprints. He's wearing thin on his team. They're trying to get some guy called Casey Washington out there over him. Yeah, that checks out.
One thing I want to say about just like a larger macro concept is, earlier in the summer, we were really big proponents of hit these, ambiguous wide receivers, rookie wide receivers in the last couple rounds, really hard to parse who the running backs are to actually click early in the summer before we get information from the teams on who actually is the running back to, who's a guy that's secured a spot on a depth chart. And now it's kind of flipped, because the market has identified like all these good wide receiver picks and steamed them up. And the ambiguous running backs have become less ambiguous now. Like you asked for my favorite one, my least favorite one, but one that is probably a viable pick that I won't take any of, is Tank Bigsby, because I think he's terrible. We saw him be terrible last year, but damn it, he's the running back too. And so like that, but that's what you get now at this point in the summer. Like, you get the guy where you're like, that's the running back too. And those are much better picks now. So I try to be
Dameon Pierce is another big one.
Dameon Pierce is,
we've come up a lot on him.
Probably bad, but is the running back too, right?
And very clearly, like,
yes.
If you're going to tell me you're taking Dameon Pierce, like, I need to be 100% certain that he's the running back too. But we got that.
So you're not concerned about Jawar Jordan.
I'm really not. It seems he's locked in. Now, it doesn't mean he couldn't lose the job over the course of the year, but entering the season, he's the running back too. You're getting the contingent value. And we have contingent value for the rest of the summer too. Like, we are starting to see injuries come in. So, like, grabbing these guys who are the locked in RB2s has value, and we didn't know they were locked in RB2s, and they're not good enough where we could count on that. As we saw with CEH, you can sometimes make that call too early. But I mean, Pierce has actually shown something. He was bad last year. He was pretty decent the year before. Second year in this scheme, maybe he shows a little more. Tank Bigsby was horrible as a rookie, but he wasn't a terrible prospect. Maybe he shows a little bit more in year 2. They're giving him the crack at the RB2 job again, very clearly. So yeah, these types of picks are a lot better than they were, because the risk of them being like not just a 0, but like in retrospect, like, he was always gonna be a 0. Like, Bigsby might be a 0 because ETN plays every game this year and he never contributes more than like 3 points or whatever, right? He scores like a touchdown. He scores 2 touchdowns and they're in different games, and he never actually cracks your lineup. But there would be a theoretical way in which he would be much more than a 0 if he's the locked in RB2. It's just, so in that sense, like, when you look back and you're like, oh, I spent, this pick on this dude who got cut, that's just, you just were never live to not have that be a 0. So at least we don't have that kind of risk associated with these running backs now.
I'd say my favorite late round pick is really, it's 2 picks, but it's that the late round tight end is back on the menu now, and I'm doing it through Johnson & Johnson, and that's Juwan Johnson and Theo Johnson.
Yeah, I was going to mention Theo Johnson if you didn't. I really like that one.
Yeah,
and
they're
Johnson's good too.
The nice thing is they're like kind of different in what they give you too. Like Juwan Johnson is like will play tight end snaps, should get some targets on the Saints, like kind of a locked in. He's like to me he kind of feels like diet Cade Otton, like won't get as many snaps as Cade Otton, but like damn it, he's out there and he has a little bit more upside than Cade Otton. I feel like. I mean, not to. There's some upside with Cade Otton, just he's young and he runs all the routes. But Johnson feels like Juwan Johnson feels like more of a not a sure thing, but like more secure. And then Theo Johnson is like that raw, I have no idea what he is, rookie upside, where he very clearly looks to be winning the job right now.
It's Ferguson-y. It feels Jake Ferguson-y. Where it's like, well, I don't know, who is it? Is it him? Is it Bellinger? And it's like, it seems like it's Theo Johnson. He's not going to have the route participation that we want week 1, but I think he will have a majority of the routes week 1, and I think he can consolidate routes over the course of the season. Like, people may not realize that Ferguson did that. Like, I think he was in the 60s, and by the end of the season, he was up towards the 80s in route participation. He consolidated routes as he went, and I think Theo Johnson, as a rookie, has a chance to do something similar. And he's a guy that was not getting drafted a lot in the early part of draft season, and we talk about how much leverage can matter. Leverage to tight end can matter. Like, if this guy has a couple touchdowns in week 15.
Juwan Johnson last year was the only good tight end in week 17.
Yeah.
He was like, I think he literally is, since they've been running Best Ball Manias, the best week 17 performance we've ever seen. It was like 24 points, been relatively low week 17s, but that's tight end, man. Position's not great. No. Some random goober goes for 24 points, and you're the only one out of 400 that has him.
Trying to say he's a good pick. Don't call him a random goober.
But it is. I mean, it's so much easier systemically for the position of tight end to fail in a given week than the position of all quarterbacks fail in a given week, right? For Sam Darnold to be the nuts, like, yeah, that's why tight end leverage is far superior to QB leverage, and that's why you go Johnson and Johnson. Make them your last 2 picks.
Yeah, no, I've literally done that. It's great.
Yeah.
Drico, any late round guys that are jumping out to you right now?
Probably not as compelling as those tight ends. One guy I've liked this year is Michael Mayer, because he kind of is the second or third. He is the second or third receiver for the Raiders, and
we probably need to raise him then. We're pretty low.
Well, sorry, I should have specified.
More in tight end premium.
That's a very specific FFPC tight end premium.
That's a good shout though.
Where, like, those kind of picks really, really matter. Where, you don't want to parse too much from preseason, but you would expect them to be their kind of like third receiver. He got the snaps and usage of their third receiver, and
in the FFPC ranks, we actually are way ahead of ADP. So
yes, yeah.
Look at that. Ranking for the format.
And then the like one of this again very FFPC specific, but one of the pieces of FFPC is that a lot of the time you will see backup tight ends go. Like Greg Dulcich goes every draft, whereas I think what's different for Michael Mayer is, and I have a lot of Brock Bowers too, but if he were to get hurt, it consolidates around Michael Mayer in a way where it doesn't really for anyone else. Like,
Dawson Knox, I would say.
I gotta be honest. I don't care if that dude plays 100% of snaps. He's pretty bad. Michael Mayer might be good. Like, I think he's pretty talented.
Right. Like the route share consolidates around them, but he's still Dawson Knox.
That's true. The routes. I get the routes. That means I get targets, right?
Right.
All right, that's a good one for the FFPC players here. I'm gonna steal Kyle's move and pick a guy who's like really not even a late round pick, but
170.
Yeah, to Kyle's
Christian
point,
McCaffrey.
Kyle's point, 15th round really starts the late rounds, and so that's pick 169. So Kyle snuck it in here. Just a couple picks into the late rounds. Jalen McMillan. I'm gonna say Braylon Allen, who's at 177 in ADP. This dude has very clearly locked up the RB2 job and is actually like kind of looking good. And he's on an offense that could obviously bounce back in a huge way, moving from Zach Wilson to Aaron Rodgers. So I think when you're getting with Allen, you're getting some like legitimate upside. Not just like you talk about, like, oh, we have the locked in RB2 of Dameon Pierce, who was horrible last year, one of the worst running backs in the league last year, but he's RB2 again. Thank Bigsby. Yeah, okay, we're taking him. We are taking him, but like Allen is that same type of bet, but he might be pretty good, right? Or he might be pretty good this year, like as a rookie year with like, a lot of juice. Maybe he 3-4 years from now we don't think of him as being good, but he might be pretty intriguing as a rookie, and just has a ton of contingent value given how quickly he locked up the RB2 role. It might be, and they've talked of his pass catching as well. Like he might have a really valuable role if Brees were to miss.
It's re-rolling the talent dice on a guy like Tank Bigsby and Dameon Pierce. Like
Yes,
Tank Bigsby
yes.
could have been really good at football. Like coming into the NFL, like you said, fine prospects turn into good players all the time. He didn't. But Braylon Allen could be like, yeah, they also turn into bad players all the time. But the fact that we get to re-roll the dice, and I do think one thing you pointed out, they're talking about his pass catching, and they don't have a pass catching specialist on that team. Unlike when you look at a Tank Bigsby, he ain't catching passes, man. He'll get, if something happens to ETN, he goes down. We get 2 downs, maybe 2.5. He's out there for a little bit of it because that's just what guys who play a lot do. But they're using Dearness Johnson as a third down, 2-minute drill kind of guy. The Jets don't have that guy, and they're talking up Braylon Allen's pass catching. This is the re-roll the talent dice that we just take 10 times out of 10. I'm frankly shocked, given that we have so certainly locked him in as the RB2, that he hasn't gone like way up.
Me too, man.
He's crept up, but it's a creep that should have been a rocket ship.
I know, and like, we've got him at 161 in the ranks for 15 spots ahead of ADP, but like, should he still be going behind Ray Davis? I don't know. I guess probably, but
I don't know. I think you could take him over Ray Davis.
Yeah. So I think he still has room to rise, and we'll probably follow that rise up. Before we get out of here, one last one. I just want to bring up Tyrone Tracy. He would have been my pick had he not suffered this ankle injury. The ankle injury doesn't appear to be that bad, although Denny Carter is noting that an air cast and cart are a little overkill for the lowest ankle sprain ever. So is it actually a low sprain? How bad is it? But then the other thing, in addition to not being exactly sure how bad the injury was, this is a rookie who's now going to miss a big portion of training camp, preseason reps, all of that. That could set back his development. That could set back trust. It could really kind of stop in its tracks the potential assault that he was going to make on that RB1 job over the course of the season, right? Like, was he going to take the job from Singletary week 1? Absolutely not. Week 3, no way. Week 13, does he start to, creep in and force a split? Those were the types of scenarios that I was starting to dream about with Tracy, given how quickly he got the RB2 snaps in preseason.
He got all of them too. He got the first drive or whatever with the starters, and then just dipped as the clear backups who do when the starters aren't playing. That's why I feel okay that this does stall his progress, but he kind of made it to where we needed him to be. If he had gotten to this point heading into week 1, they tell us oh, it's clearly that guy, we'd be thrilled. He arrived early, which is good.
Right.
He needed to arrive early, but I'm still, obviously our rankings are still, we're 19 picks at AP.
We're still pretty in.
Oh, we are all the way in. And yeah, it sucks that he got hurt. But the fact that he got past the post before he got hurt makes me feel very less concerned about the injury. I do agree. It probably takes a little bit it sets the timetable back a little bit. But like you said, we weren't taking him and because we thought we were going to get a starter in week 1. And I'm not sure it sets the timetable back much, if at all, given that it's one preseason game, but they treated him like he was the veteran RB2, and that's the end of it.
And he's still going to be out there if he plays week 1 or week 2. He's still going to be out there, so he's still going to have the opportunity to make plays, impress, and take more work share.
And he does fall. People were scared about the ankle injury. Like I took him as I think the literal last pick of the draft in a draft today. So it's actually, I really like having like a luxury pick set up where I could take a running back if I needed, or I could take a tight end. Really the only one I don't like, I want to be done at wide receiver by that last round, but like having a QB, running back, or tight end luxury pick feels pretty awesome right now. There's lots of really good guys that can fall all the way to the very last round in all of those positions. And so setting yourself up to be like, my team's done in round 17, and then whichever of all of these targets that I like across quarterback, tight end, and running back, that's whatever I'll click that gets there to me in round 18. That's kind of feels the best way to play it right now.
It's an easy build too. I'm stopping at 7 wide receivers a lot, but I'm drafting a lot of receivers early. And so then you get to the end, you're like, I can stop at 7. That means I can go. I've done am I talking 3, 5, 7, 3? Did I is that too many?
Nope, you're good.
I'm good. Okay. I was having like a total brain fart on that. But yeah, 3, 5, 7, 3 is because normally the previous build I used to do a lot of was 2, 5, 8, 2. And so wait.
2, 6, 8, 2.
2, 6, 8, 2. All right. It's getting late in the pod. Yeah, no. What I used to do was 2, 5, 9, 2. And I'm doing more 3, 5, 7, 3. Taking 2 of those receiver dart throws and putting them with the onesies because in part I'm really trying to hammer, wide receiver early, going 3 wide receiver starts a lot, that type of stuff. And then also feeling like I don't really see the point of taking a receiver here. Like I got to the end of a Josh Allen build and I was like, I could take Mac Hollins or I could take Dawson Knox. And I didn't have Kincaid, obviously. I took Dawson Knox, right, as a third tight end. I'm doing stuff more like that, where I'm doing a lot more like, 2, 5, 8, 2, and 3, 5, 7, 2 builds a lot more this year. And are you guys doing anything like that, or
you were one short on both of those, but I'm assuming that you meant that you're leaving those in the 17th round and then having a luxury pick. But yes, I have.
Yeah, Pat, I'm actually not forfeiting many of my picks.
No, I was one short on both. What was I trying to say? 2, 3, 5, 7, 3 is a build I'm doing a lot more of. That was my point.
Yeah, I like that, especially as we're getting like more info on these late tight ends. Like, oh, what are they doing in the Giants room? Oh, Theo might be emerging. Juwan was like, oh, we got to stop drafting Juwan. No, it actually seems like we might throw it back on. So it feels like, especially at that like specific onesie spot, is like, would I rather burn that spot on a wide receiver who's like, he's not very talented or he's his team's wide receiver 5, or a tight end who's running routes?
Yeah.
At this point, we've got the routes, so throw that out there.
The tight ends just seem like better bets. Like the 8th wide receiver, the 3rd tight end, the 9th wide receiver, the 3rd tight end. It seems like breaking that tie to the tight end in this environment is the sharper move.
Yeah, my roster constructions right now, I've got 23% 2, 5, 8, 3. I've got 16.5% 2, 6, 8, 2. I've got 14% 3, 5, 8, 2. 13% 2, 6, 7, 3. And then this is way higher than I've done this in the past, but 11% 3, 5, 7, 3. I think last year I was probably like half that.
Oh yeah, easily for me. I rarely did that. It used to be like, don't do that. Don't take 3 at each onesie. But I think especially better late round quarterback options, and right now the late round tight ends feeling like better dart throws than the late round wide receivers. A 3, 5, 7, 3 is in some ways a 3, 5, 8, 2 to me. Where I'm like, it's a dart throw. I hope this guy scores a touchdown in week 15, but he's a tight end instead of a wide receiver. And frankly, that helps more if he does. This tight end's a lower scoring position. All right, let's shut this one down. Appreciate you guys. Kyle, anything at Roto World?
I have been dropping the preseason. It was training camp. Now it's preseason notes after the preseason snaps come out. So check that out. And I think I'm going to update my dynasty rankings later this week. So you can check that out too. And of course, Roto World Pod, which if you go back in the archives this summer, you'll find stuff with Karain on. You can find stuff with Davis on. So if you want to continue the leg up ship chasing universe, hop in for there's some of those episodes as well that kind of cross over.
Yeah, always recommend the Roto World Pod. Drico, what do you got going on?
I'm working on a quarterbacks in particularly FFPC article right now for RotoViz. One thing that I'm going to tease something, so I better publish it now, is that one of the better bets for quarterback. It's not the best bet, but it's one of the better bets. Is the really late round rookie quarterbacks.
Go on.
Because if you because obviously the playing time risk really depresses the price, but if you do hit on someone who plays a couple of games and gets you some usable weeks, you can get pretty good advance rates and win rates and stuff like that. One example would be Will Levis from last year, where he didn't actually play that much, but because you got some pretty good usable weeks, he was still a helpful pick.
You are up next.
So we just need Drake Maye to be Will Levis.
Now you are on the clock.
All right. Zach, anything you want to shout out?
We did just release the DraftKings version of the Sidekick. It is in alpha right now, so in order to use that, you need to go to the Discord channel. We've got instructions there in our Sidekick alerts channel. And if you're having trouble finding anything, you can just always reach out to Pat or myself. We're in the Discord. But yes, you now can use the Sidekick on DraftKings, and we'll hopefully have that on the live server very shortly here. Just had a little delay with Mozilla getting all the hoop jumping that you have to go through to get your extension approved with them. But anyway, that is now available.
And so it is the reason we're saying head to the Discord is there's it's hoop jumping is kind of what we're going to have you do in terms of actually getting this thing set up because there's that the way the alpha works, there's like some additional steps that you have to do to get this thing working. So head over if you're ready to test out the DraftKings extension. You're real excited to check it out. Just know that it's not going to be like the most like technologically easy thing you've ever done. So if you're a little bit more just want to take it out of the box, click 3 buttons, get this thing running. We are hoping that it will be out in production version very soon. It's hard for me to say exactly when because it's not really up to our timeline, but I would really like for that to be available by the end of the week, over the weekend, early next week. Really, every day that passes, I'm disappointed it's not out. So if you don't want to check out the alpha version, hopefully you'll be able to check it out in production very soon. But obviously encourage you want to follow some instructions, set this thing up, head on over to the Leg Up Discord. I'll also mention that I am getting the old time machine fired back up, wiping the cobwebs off. Going to be heading to week 17 and seeing the legendary upside scenarios for all the early round running backs. That article will be out very soon, in the next couple weeks, I mean. And also have an article I'm working on rookie wide receivers, looking at the late round rookie wide receivers. So it's really been like where the rookie wide receivers have shined is coming out of the late rounds and having these big advance rates and being better than we think they are. And you're getting like a higher caliber of talent in the late rounds than you're really able to find at the veterans. Even with the veterans who hit, a lot of it is kind of just like volume based. They're still like not that efficient. You're able to actually get efficiency out of rookies in the late round. So diving into some of the research that I have there and then profiling all the rookies in the late rounds. We had an awesome piece from Daniel come out over the weekend. Highly recommend checking that out. I had running back profiles, all the running backs going in round 7 through 10 on the site last week. Definitely would check that out if you have not done so already. And Stephanie Miller had an article on a dynasty auction draft. So any dynasty people, that was an excellent article as well. Ton of great content coming out on the site in the next couple of weeks, and we'll see you soon.